Hello, creator here. I want to say that this video will be split into two parts. If you already know the story of Philip, you can skip to the second part. But if you don't play Ruina or aren't involved in Project Moon, just watch the full video, please. Yeah. Sigma Aura, Steady Toilet. How Wild. Red Mist. Roland. Black Silence. Purple Tear. Twilight. Apocalypse Bird, Schadenfreude, There for Shoots, Funerals of Dead Butterflies, The One True Book, Book of Philip. Oh yeah, Philip is the GOAT. I'm the number one Philip fan out there. You will never ever meet a bigger Philip fan from Ruina, because Philip's the GOAT.
Yes, I have been so afraid.
People are just cogs in a merciless machine and system called the City. Library of Ruina introduces us to a character who feels heartbreakingly human. Philip starts out, like many other of the guests, as a fixer and a person with ideals. He desperately believes that everything he does is for others, and wants to match up to others who he feels are superior to him. He has an immense feeling of inferiority to his mentor, Salvador, and his crush, Una. Philip feels that he's not worthy of his grade as a fixer, and that his reputation as a grade 5 is only being carried and dragged through the mud by Salvador's strength, not as his own. He seems rather laconic to those around him, rarely speaking or responding to feedback or compliments. Philip also has a belief/speculation that Salvador and June are having an affair, despite Salvador being a married man. Philip eventually enters the library, and he falls with his comrade. But when he loses everything, his friends, his comrades, his purpose, Philip doesn't magically become a better person. That's what makes him so realistically flawed. He doesn't grow instantly, nor does he instantly resolve hardening himself. He doesn't move on from his laments. It stays with him. He thought what he had done was right, and in that choice he runs. He reaches out to the Wedge office, justifying his actions on the behalf of his dead comrades, though his lies are seen through by the likes of Pimeli and Oscar, who call him out for his emotional turbulence, his selfish desire that he gaslit himself into believing. He can't see it, but others can. Moving along for the sake of others is ultimately selfish, no matter how you look at it, as wishing to protect all, no matter how heroic you may think it is, will only lead to self-righteousness and ignorance to your own flaws. The Wedge office fails, and so does Philip's mental state. He stops. He stays stagnant in his belief, trying to justify it until he comes to a realization and weeps, drowning in his own emotions. He lashes out, blaming others for his suffering. He justifies his failures as the fault of the world around him. It's selfish, ugly, but ultimately human. Yet, through his selfishness, Philip resolves. A crack forms in the mask he wears. For the first time, he turns to face the man in the mirror. Himself. He sees that he was selfish in himself, that chasing his own sense of justice and wallowing in his own bitterness, he only spreads misery to those around him. His so-called justice was just another mask for weakness. And like the dawn office, like the sun rising after a bitter night, Philip stands again, not as a hero, not as a martyr, but a man burdened by his sins, still alive, still standing, still moving. He rises again like the daybreak, a light illuminating the night, his appearance matching one of the night, growing. This was recorded at like 3 a.m. So, I'm sorry. Anyways, ego. Well, the change in Philip is caused due to ego. Ego stands for extermination of geometrical organ, which is a type of equipment. Well, equipment in Lobotomy Corporation. Well, no, a type of equipment manifested from an individual's mind. In Lobotomy Corporation, ego was extracted from abnormalities instead of others' minds. Though after the white night and the dark days, causing the seed of light to be spread throughout the city. Humans and residents of the city have gained the ability to manifest their own ego, though if one chooses to get overtaken by their ego and fails to manifest it and gives in to all their negative emotions, they may become a distortion instead. A wing, his arm encompassed by wax, a blazing sword in his arm. He resolves and focuses his anger, his emotions, his sadness, everything, pointing at the one foe. The monsters that took everything away from him as he aims to fly freely, not bound by his lamentations as he charges towards the library. He resolves. He was ready to die, to accept any fate that comes his way, maybe even changing it. He sheds his mask of weakness and flies, but his wings of wax flew too close to the sun, and he falls. Though he doesn't smile or laugh as he falls, as he never truly gets to touch the ground. Walter, not Walter, what the heck? Salvador, his fallen mentor, had saved him one last time. A teleportation device was planted on him, and he completely breaks. He cries, because even death, the closure he had clung to, the fate he had resigned to, was denied him. He is forced to keep living in a world where the people he had failed are gone. He had the resolve now, the courage then, but not when it counted. He sees what others sees in him, but it was far too late for anyone else to see, for anyone else to love him. Teleportation device that Walter had placed on him malfunctioned, bringing him to the 8 o'clock circus, which was a previous conflict that the Red Office had fought. Philip, believing that killing the 8 o'clock circus will help him repent. Will help him repent for the death of the Wedge office and his stagnation and hesitation when accounted in the library. He charges at Oswald, though Oswald proving to be no match for Philip. He falters again. And Oswald senses this, senses his ego, his mind, his self falling and failing, and this turmoil. Smelling his stench, Oswald tortures him, forcing him to confront his delusion, his idea of self-sacrifice, his sadness, manifesting his lost comrades, and having them insult him, harm him, and break down his small and fragile ego. This immense stress caused by Oswald causes Philip to start going through a process known as distortion, where your ego overtakes you, and this process is sped up by Pluto, another distortion, who reveals himself to Philip and tells him to listen to the voices. And so Philip, bounded by all his limitations, not being able to truly fly free, broken and battered, makes a choice. He decides to reject the world, to close his eyes to pain, to block his ears to toxic words, to seal his lips to evil, to stop acting for anyone but himself. He becomes the crying children, an act of selfishness like no other. Philip's story, well, not the end, but for you who want to know the rest of Philip's story, go play Library of Ruina. Actually, go play it, because it will contain spoilers for the ending of the game. I don't want to spoil it for people. So, yeah. But for me, Philip teaches us that there is a kind of selfishness and refusing to let go of grief and claiming to suffer for others while silently refusing to heal. A person can unknowingly spread that misery to everyone around them, and in doing so, they risk becoming the very thing they hate. Philip represents someone being stranded, unable to move forward and unwilling to move back, clinging to the idea that their pain must mean something, even if it doesn't. It reminds us of how easy it is to justify terrible choices by framing them as noble, that even good intentions can be poisoned by insecurity and resentment, and that it's terrifyingly simple to convince ourselves that if our pain hurts enough, it must mean we're right. Through Philip, we see that stagnation is one of the cruelest fates a person can endure, the kind where your world shrinks to the size of your own suffering. Every kindness feels undeservable, every tragedy feels inevitable. When Philip lashes out and blames the world because it's easier than blaming himself. And in that, he teaches us something uncomfortable, that self-victimization can be a refuge. When the world has hurt you deeply enough, it's tempting to turn your pain into a shield and your suffering into an identity. But doing so means you stop growing. You stop seeing others clearly. You stop living. He realizes his justice was never about the world, even his friends. It was about filling the hole left by his failures and trying to believe that if he kept suffering long enough, it would somehow make him good. Philip teaches us, while pain is inevitable, meaning isn't. We don't automatically grow. We don't always become better people just because we've been hurt. Growth is a choice, and it's a brutal, thankless one. His story forces us to confront how fragile our sense of self can be, how our ideals, if unexamined, can rot from the inside, that sometimes, in clinging to those ideals, we push away the very things that can save us. And most importantly, Philip shows us that no one is guaranteed redemption. No one gets a clean ending or a triumphant return. Well, not everyone at least. Some people fall, and when they finally realize how far they've fallen, there's no one left to catch them. He teaches us that even if the world is cruel, and even if relationships break, the decision to keep moving, not for revenge, is simply because you're alive. Is a quiet defiance against despair. And even within that, there's another lesson. That even most lost people are still human. Their worth isn't determined by their success or their strength, by their capacity to feel, to mourn, to regret. His story warns us of the danger of letting sorrow become a substitute for purpose, that grief, if not faced honestly, becomes a trap, a repeating loop of self-pity and projection. You mistake righteousness for bitterness. Thanks for watching this, and Free Chikama on YouTube. If you want more Philip, Free Chikama has a better deep dive on Philip, in my opinion. I just wanted to do my own video because Philip is cool.